Hi everyone, my name is Krystel Miranda. I am a graduate of Cal State Fullerton. I graduated in ethnic studies a couple of years ago with a minor in math. I like to watch TV. I like to cook. I just kind of hang out at home with my husband for the most part. We go to the gym, we go shopping, we go to the movies, just regular things. I also like to do crafting projects. I like to sew, make toys, things like that for my niece and nephew. I like to spend a lot of time with family. I have a very large family. Both of my parents have 12 brothers and sisters, so I have lots and lots of cousins. I only have one sister myself, so it's just the two of us. She has a boy and a girl whom I love with all of my heart. I also like to go on YouTube and look at tutorials. I always thought that I would be a YouTuber someday, so that's probably not going to happen. This might be the closest I ever get. So I actually was kind of excited that this was our first assignment. I chose to go into education for several reasons. First of all, I grew up in the classroom. My mom was a teacher for 35 years, and I used to go and help her out a lot when I was little, just decorating her classroom. And then as I got older, I would help her with students and, providing individual tutoring for students that were struggling. Um, I also work with students. I've worked with students, particularly high school students, for over 15 years. I just kind of found myself gravitating towards jobs where I had to help certain population of students, usually underserved, underprivileged, um, mostly Latinos, and that's just what I love doing. It's really my passion to help provide an equitable education from the lens of social justice. And I just have really just a passion for those students. I try to empathize with what they're going through and understand why it is that they might have some issues with school, behavior problems, difficulty understanding the material. So I really have a soft spot in my heart for those students. And I really love math. That is what I want to go into. I want to be a math teacher because math has a right answer. So I think it's really awesome that it's not ambiguous. There is a certainty to it. And I love getting students to understand when they're having difficulty in class. I think it's really cool when something clicks. And since I do work mostly with Latino students, I like to remind them that, they come from a history of math geniuses. And so it's really cool to tell them that, it's in their blood and they can do it, and really just emphasize the fact that it's not beyond them, that they are capable of these things, and really just trying to get them to believe in themselves. How I identify as far as my ethnicity is I am Mexican. I don't necessarily identify as Chicana, even though I do technically fall under that category. I just feel it's too politically charged of a word for my own identity, although I do absolutely have an appreciation for the Chicano movement and everything that it stood for. And I do incorporate a lot of the values into my own life, especially with social justice. However, I feel that I am more Mexican than anything. I love my culture. I'm super proud of my culture. I was lucky enough to have parents that really instilled that pride for our heritage in myself and my sister. Um, I grew up speaking Spanish, so my parents both speak Spanish and English. However, it was really important for them that me and my sister master the language, so they would send us to Mexico every year for summer, and we would live with my dad's relatives who do not speak English, and so we were really forced um, to utilize the language to the best of our ability. And it was actually a blessing in disguise, even though it was really hard to leave when we were younger. I do appreciate it a lot now because I am able to identify with the parents of a lot of students that I work with and really explain to them what it is that's going on with their students, and just being able to tap into that identity and relating to the different population of parents that are so far removed from their own children and their own experiences. Um, I thought it was kind of cool when I saw the question. At first, I was like, huh, that's interesting. But I do really enjoy talking about my culture and how it makes me feel. I think it's such a beautiful culture to come from. A lot of the time it's portrayed negatively, but it really is so multifaceted. It's beautiful. You can go from one region to the next, and it's almost like going from one country to another. But I really did enjoy the question, so thanks. I would define multicultural education, and I wrote it down on my little notes, as an understanding of how different ethnicities and cultures influence individuals and how those influences impact their educational experience. And I think it's really important as educators that we are tapped into that awareness, because it does help provide students with the best possible services that we could give them based on their individual needs. After doing all of the readings, there are a couple of things about multicultural education that I was not aware of. And one of those main points would be how deeply anti-racism is embedded into the idea of multicultural education. I always thought of it more as a way of being inclusive as opposed to being mindful of attacking the idea of racism, especially within a classroom, because it is such a touchy subject for a lot of educators to broach. Um, and it is heavily embedded into the whole pedagogy of multicultural education. So that is something that I know I would be uncomfortable with if I wasn't properly trained. And just in general, especially because there is a lot of sensitive nature around the topic. It's really difficult to make sure that we're doing things the right way, especially because it is so politically charged. The other thing that I thought was really interesting was the idea that it needs to be incorporated into all aspects of the educational setting. And I absolutely agree with that. I just feel that it's difficult, especially with how our educational setting is so ingrained in the European aspect of history and art, and basically everything that is culturally valued in our country. So to incorporate all aspects of all the ethnicities that encompass the student population would be difficult to do, although I do feel that it would be beneficial for all students to be able to see themselves within the curriculum. So I thought that was really interesting, because I thought it was more of an idea of that we need to just kind of be aware of where students are coming from, so that we can make sure that we're making the proper accommodations. And that's even something that was kind of debunked in the reading, especially in Nieto's Affirming Diversity. Just the idea that we don't need to make special accommodations for students. It's really bringing those students up to their potential and to setting higher standards for them that really incorporate the ideas that they are able. And as educators, we need to make sure that we're putting them up to the challenge instead of babying them and holding their hand the whole way. There's different ways that we can empower them, as opposed to making different accommodations for them just because we want to be quote unquote nice, as the teacher was saying in Nieto's other reading, which was the Language, Culture, and Teaching Critical Perspectives. So I think it's definitely a difficult road to go down in the grand scheme of things, but very valuable. And I think it would just make for a more enriching educational experience for students. And I think it is a way to really builds up the system in order to encompass everyone and to break down those racial barriers, and especially when they're so closely tied to the socioeconomical barriers that our students face as well. So thank you for listening and watching, and I hope to meet all of you via your introductions as well. And I look forward to a great semester or very short winter intersession. Thank you. Bye.